I am 87 years old, and I almost died because I trusted the wrong people. Not bad people, not evil people, people in white coats who were overworked and overbooked and looking at a clipboard instead of looking at me. And I want to tell you what happened, what I found out, and what I did about it. Because nobody else in my life was willing to say this out loud. And I am too old and too tired of watching people suffer quietly to stay silent about it anymore. I was 70 years old when the medical system in America looked me in the eye and failed me completely. Not dramatically, not with a single catastrophic mistake that made headlines. Quietly, systematically, in the way that something fails when nobody is paying close enough attention, and the person who needs help does not know enough to demand it. I left appointments feeling dismissed. I left prescriptions that gave me new problems. I then needed new prescriptions to manage. I left a system that treated my body like a set of isolated parts rather than a whole person. And each specialist fixed their part and sent me home, and nobody was looking at the whole picture. And I got sicker. Slowly, incrementally, undeniably sicker. And I was told that was just aging. That was just how it went, that there was not much more to be done. I want to tell you about a friend of mine named Walter. Walter was 73 when I met him at a cardiac rehab group my doctor had sent me to after a minor episode that scared my family more than it scared me. Walter was a retired electrician, thick hands, and a direct way of talking that I liked immediately. He had been through 3 different cardiologists in 4 years, each one adjusting medications the previous one had prescribed, none of them talking to each other, all of them operating on Walter as though the other 2 did not exist. Walter had a folder, an actual manila folder he carried to every appointment, stuffed with lab results and prescription records and notes he had written himself in the margins, because he had learned the hard way that if he did not track it, nobody else was going to. He showed it to me once. The folder was 2 inches thick. That folder was the most honest picture of what it means to be an older man navigating American healthcare that I have ever seen. A man doing the coordination work that the system was supposed to do, carrying his own file because nobody else would carry it for him. Walter told me something that stayed with me. He said, "They are not bad doctors. They just do not have time to see you. They see your numbers, and your numbers are not you." He said it simply, without bitterness, the way a man says something he has had a long time to make peace with. But underneath the peace, there was a cost. Walter had spent 3 years fatigued and dizzy and told it was manageable until a new doctor, who actually sat with him for 45 minutes, figured out in one appointment that 2 of his medications were working against each other in a way that had been documented in the literature for years. 3 years. Walter lost 3 years of feeling like himself because nobody had 45 minutes. I think about Walter's folder. I think about all the people who do not have a Walters folder, who go into appointments without notes, without records, without the hard-won knowledge that you have to advocate loudly for yourself in a room where the person across from you is already thinking about the next patient. Those people are not less deserving of good care. They are just less equipped for a system that was not designed with them in mind. Now I know what this sounds like. It sounds like a complaint. But I am not here to complain. I am here because after years of being managed rather than healed, I started doing something different. And what happened next was significant enough that I need to tell you about it, even if some of it makes you uncomfortable. If you are watching this, and any part of what I am saying sounds familiar, if you have sat in a waiting room for 45 minutes to get 7 minutes with a doctor who did not quite look up from the screen, if you have been handed a prescription without a real conversation, if you have left an appointment with more questions than you arrived with and nobody to ask them to, I want you to drop something in the comments right now. Just tell me if this has been your experience, because I have a feeling I am not the only one. And knowing that other people have lived this matters. It matters more than you think. The first thing I did differently was the hardest. I stopped being a polite patient. I had spent 70 years being the kind of patient doctors liked. I showed up on time. I took my prescriptions without too many questions. I said thank you and left when the appointment was clearly wrapping up, even if I had things I had not asked yet. I was cooperative and undemanding, and it was slowly killing me. So I stopped. I started writing my questions down before every appointment, and I did not leave until they were answered. Not rushed through, actually answered. I started asking why every time a new medication was suggested. Why this medication? What are the alternatives? What happens if I do not take it? What are the interactions with what I am already taking? Simple questions that I had always been too polite to ask, and that turned out to have answers that changed my care significantly. The second thing I did was find a doctor who still practiced what I can only describe as old-fashioned medicine. Someone who sat down. Someone who asked about my life, not just my symptoms. Someone who understood that a 70-year-old man's health is not a collection of isolated numbers, but a story with context and history and interconnected chapters. They are harder to find than they should be, and some of them are outside the insurance networks in ways that cost money. I want to be honest about that. But I want to be equally honest that the money I spent on one thorough integrative physician in 1 year saved me years of mismanaged prescriptions and the costs, physical and financial, that came with them. The third thing I did was take nutrition seriously in a way I never had before. Not a diet, not a program, just a genuine reckoning with the fact that the food I was eating was either working for my body or against it, and I had been largely indifferent to that question for decades. I am not going to tell you what to eat, because that is between you and your own body and your own doctor. What I will tell you is that when I changed what I was putting into this body, the body responded in ways that the previous 5 years of pharmaceutical management had not produced. I had more energy. My inflammation markers dropped. I slept better. My mind was clearer. These are not small things at 87. These are the difference between a life you are enduring and a life you are actually inside of. I want you to stay with me here, because what I am about to say is the part that took me the longest to accept. The medical system in America is not designed to make you well. I know that sounds extreme. I know some of you are going to push back on that in the comments, and I want you to. I want to hear your experience. But I spent 17 years on the other side of what I am describing now, and I can tell you from that experience that a system built around managing chronic conditions is not financially incentivized to resolve them. That is not a conspiracy. That is just economics. And once I understood that, once I stopped expecting the system to want from me what I wanted from myself, I stopped being passive inside it. This is where most men my age go wrong. We were raised to respect authority. We were raised to trust the person in the white coat and not ask too many questions and take the advice and go home. That worked reasonably well when medicine was simpler and appointments were longer, and your doctor knew your name without looking at the chart. That era is largely gone, and the men who are still operating by the old rules inside the new system are the ones being left behind. You have to be your own advocate now. You have to be your own Walter with your own folder. Nobody else is going to do it for you, and the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can actually start getting better. If this is landing for you, if you are an older man watching this and nodding along because you have felt this exact frustration and nobody in your life has named it this plainly before, I want you to do one thing right now. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon, because we are going to keep having these conversations, the ones that nobody else is having for men like us, and I do not want you to miss a single one of them. Every week there is something here that your doctor is not going to tell you, and your insurance company definitely is not going to tell you, and that you deserve to know. So subscribe, hit the bell, stay with us. Now let me tell you what I found on the other side of all of this, because I do not want to leave you with only the difficult part. I am 87 years old. I take fewer medications than I took at 75. My last physical produced results that made my current doctor visibly pleased in a way that doctors are not usually visibly pleased with 87-year-olds. I sleep well. I think clearly. I have more energy in the mornings than I did a decade ago. None of that happened because I found a miracle cure or a secret supplement, or anything that costs a lot of money or requires a dramatic lifestyle overhaul. It happened because I stopped being passive, because I started asking questions, because I found one good doctor who treated me like a whole person, and I paid attention to what my body was telling me, and I took nutrition seriously. And I stopped accepting the narrative that decline is inevitable and unmanageable and just what getting older looks like. Decline is real. I am not pretending otherwise. I am 87, and my body is not what it was at 50, and it never will be. But there is a very large difference between the natural changes of aging and the unnecessary suffering of a body that has been mismanaged or ignored or handed off between specialists who never spoke to each other. You deserve to know the difference. You deserve care that sees you as a person and not a case number. And you have more power to demand that than you have probably been told. I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you felt dismissed by your doctor? Have you ever left an appointment with that feeling of something is wrong and nobody is quite listening? Tell me, be honest, because the more we talk about this, the more we say out loud what older men in this country have been told to quietly accept, the harder it becomes to keep ignoring it. Leave your experience below. I read them. I actually read them. And you might say something that helps someone else who is sitting here watching and not sure they are allowed to feel what they are feeling. Walter passed away 4 years ago. He was 81. He passed in reasonable comfort, better managed in his final years than in his middle ones, because he never stopped asking questions and never stopped carrying that folder and never stopped insisting that his care be coordinated and coherent and actually about him. I keep a folder now too. Started one right after I met him. Mine is 3 inches thick. My current doctor calls it my autobiography. She says it is the most useful thing a patient has ever brought her. Start your folder. Ask your questions. Find the doctor who has 45 minutes. And if the system pushes back, push back harder. You have earned that right. You have paid into this system for decades, and you deserve more than 7 minutes and a new prescription on your way out the door. Your health is not a burden you manage until the end. It is a life you are still living, and it deserves to be treated exactly that way. We are going to keep talking about this. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Hit that bell and watch the other videos we have made for men who are done being quiet about the things that matter. The conversation is just getting started, and I have a feeling you have a lot more to say. So do I. See you next time.